We have taken the 5 elements of hip hop and blended them with the 5 components of social emotional learning to create this immersive, like, social emotional arts program. And we use the restorative approaches and practices to ensure that we're creating a space for the children. What I did notice during 2019, I was an adjunct professor at the time, and when everything shut down, all I could hear, I could hear the children. It was a weird sensation. And whenever I would see children, they would just have earbuds in their ear, and I was like, "What are they listening to? Like, we got to get in their ears." It was like everybody was having all these forums about, like, what they thought, and I was like, "But what do the children think?" Like, I feel like their lives are being influenced the most. Like, we've got to create a forum. We've got to create a space for them. I want to know.
I never grew up with educators that look like myself. So I feel like, honestly, like, we are that new wave that make being wise, being smart, being educated cool, right? Wisdom is a powerful tool, but oftentimes we might neglect it because of who it's coming from. You feel me? But if we can chop it up with a young buck and really implant a seed, man, like, it's more than just education at that point. You know what I'm saying?
What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Let's Grow Together podcast where diverse individuals and communities come to serve, connect, and grow in the areas that they're most passionate about. I'm here again with my brother Marcus, as always. Let's check in with our audience. Let them know how you doing.
What's going on, family? I hope everybody had a phenomenal Turkey Day. For those who celebrate and for those who don't, hope you enjoyed yours, man. Biggest takeaway, just in kind of recap and just mentally prepping for Gala. Man, Turkey Day was a unique one. We were able to connect with wifey's family in Winston-Salem. A lot of older, individuals, those older great aunts, great uncles in the family. And man, I had the pleasure of connecting with her great uncle, Uncle Lou. Phenomenal host. I'm talking about washing dishes. I'm talking about cooking breakfast. And my man is 80 and some change, man. Like, really older, but was still holding things down. And ironically, the day that we left, he actually ended up passing away. So
Mm.
it was just very unique for the whole family. But one of the main things he told us throughout the whole time was, "Yo, this is my favorite Thanksgiving. I really enjoyed it." It was almost as if, like, he knew, right? But I had that
Yeah.
moment to really connect with him as he was looking through some of his albums as he was a preacher. And it was just a real genuine, just heart to heart, man. But to know that he was gone the following day, it just, yeah, it was a unique feeling. But as always, life and death just make you a little bit more appreciative of life. So just beyond reflective and appreciative of the time and energy we had to spend with him. And again, man, he went out with a bang. My man went out with a
Yeah.
big smile on his face, for real, for real. So it was beautiful, man. But how about yourself? Check in. What's going on with you?
That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
kind of crazy, but
yeah.
it is extremely poetic, to be honest. It's crazy how you say it's like they kind of know. It's like my grandfather when he
Mm-hmm.
passed away. It's like he kind of knew his time was coming, but he was turned up, making
Yeah.
every moment of it. So I feel that. But man, I traditionally don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but me, my girlfriend, we got some family members together. She brought her sisters, her mom, and I was laughing with them like, you guys are so similar. And I'm like, I see where my girlfriend get a lot of her mannerisms and some of her tendencies. And it was just funny because they just started busting up laughing like, we've been hearing that our whole life. And mom loves me, sisters love me, but it was just one of those things like hosting takes another level of patience and preparation. You gotta you gotta be on point. Like you gotta make sure that everything is going right. Everybody's catered to in a sense, or well taken care of. But I was more managing than hosting. But man, it was dope, man. I just really appreciated the time to have a break because we didn't have many programs that week. So it was just really dope. But other than that, man, life is good, bro.
Nah, I feel it. Yeah, and hosting can be something serious, man. It could be draining. It could be daunting. It can be all the above, man. No better feeling than when you get the mission complete, everybody out the door, and y'all just look at each other like, we did it, man. And you can decompress and be back in yours. So I know the feeling. That's why it was a blessing to not have to host. Like, I love not having to host and being able to
Yeah.
kick my feet back and move as I wanted. But definitely feel that. So I want to talk a little bit about the not celebrating Turkey Day, but I want to do it in the midst of welcoming on our guests. So, Squad, I would love to welcome you to introducing to Miss Nakisha. Miss Nakisha is actually somebody I had the opportunity to connect with via the company that I work with, After School HQ. She has a dope nonprofit out in Dallas, Texas, doing some great work. So, Miss Nikisha, how are you today?
I am content. I'm in a space of true gratitude. I love this full moon energy, so just embracing all of that. But I'm doing well.
I
Doing
love it.
well.
I love it.
Uh,
Hey, what again, we're
just
definitely excited to have you on as well. But I wanted to ask you a question. As James mentioned, not really celebrating Turkey Day. That again, I know I had called you probably like the day before Thanksgiving. We were rapping, and I said something about Turkey Day, and you're like, "Yeah, I don't really celebrate that." And I'm getting that a lot more. I want to hear a little bit about how you go about celebrating and kind of the why behind it, if you don't mind.
well, so I really believe in it's a day of gratitude, right? And so whenever I think of Thanksgiving, I think of just over excessive amounts of food, over excessive, just everything just seems very, very excessive. And so just wanting to honor and gratitude, just the abundance that we live in. And so just being able to turn it into like a day of gratitude, being able to journal. Me and my daughter had some time together. And so we woke up and we drank our smoothies and we got our journals. And I was like, okay, first thing, I need 100 things that you're grateful for. Like, let's jot them down.
Mm,
And so we went through that. And then I was just like, okay, so the next thing I want you to do is think about the people in your life. I want you to write down all the people that you feel like if like you're in a bind, who can you turn to? I want you to write all of those down. And so we just did like a lot of different journal entries like that, just to be able to be reflective, just to be grateful, and just to be in a different space. But um, yeah, I just didn't want to go in with the excessive food. I'm staying away from meat, and so it just everything about it and the way that I've traditionally like celebrated it just didn't feel in alignment. And so I just wanted to teach my daughter like a different tradition. So we had a really good time.
Oh my God, I love that. 100 things that you're grateful for. I know that's a stretch. I know a lot of people struggle with 10. I remember when I was first telling one of the people that I mentor, like, just start writing, your gratitude, and I'm like, just start with 10. And I'm like, even if it's something as simple as I'm grateful for the seasoning in my cabinet, you know what I mean? Um, and I'm like, just but get into to the habit of writing about gratitude. But I want to ask you, like, when did you start that practice, and where did that come from? Like, what made you go away from the American way of celebrating Thanksgiving and then tradition into the way that you're in now?
I think it was the death of my grandfather, honestly. Like when he passed away, tradition was different. I actually used to host Thanksgiving. And so when that passed away, that's also when I was introduced to a life of like fully embracing mindfulness. And so in learning about the universal law of like energy exchange and all the universal laws, it just some of these holidays really don't align with like what universal law says. And so I always want to be in alignment, and so I found myself just misaligned whenever I saw everything that was going on. So I just kind of stepped away from it, just because it didn't feel natural. It just kind of felt like, I was just going along with society, but not really being authentic to myself. So I just wanted to do something different. And so I did. And so I'll still, use it as a gratitude day and spend time with those that I love in my family. But it just tends to be a different type of practice and putting our energy into other things outside of just like who's going to cook the pecan pie,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah.
I, I definitely resonate with that. As of lately, the more conscious I feel I'm getting, I question a whole lot more. And these holidays have been one, especially doing a little bit more digging, knowing like it's really the day of like gluttony, essentially, right? Which our society is huge on, being fit, staying away from that, but we glorify this and we don't really ask questions. Even just driving down the street, I saw all the decorative, signs and things of that nature just geared towards it, and I realized it's almost like we're hypnotized to it. A lot of people don't really ask that question or buck the system. So again, I thought that was huge, just kind of having that initial conversation with you learning. that you really look at it more so just from being gracious for everything that we do have versus over leveraging what we do have, right? So that's a dope perspective. I appreciate that. More do you know? Now, I want to give the people a little bit of background about your organization. I can definitely give a synopsis, but nobody can tell the story better than you. So I love for you just to give us a little bit more insight on your organization and how you really leverage that mindfulness to really kind of be that North Star for your organization.
No doubt. So I want to start by saying that the mindfulness piece definitely came from me conceiving my child. So when I conceived my daughter, it was almost like a huge fog just lifted off of me. And I was able to see things clearly. I say, like, it cleared up my third eye, for lack of a better way to explain it. And so I was really able, I was married at the time, and I was able to really see life for what it was. So I was able to see my lifestyle, my marriage, and really be able to see how I was living life. So when you get realization like that, I don't think that people talk about like the anger and rage that comes with that, the anxiety. So I have a lived experience of anxiety and depression since I was a baby girl. And so once that fog was lifted off and the realization came in, it was very difficult to not see it. It was a big reality check for me. And so I needed to embrace something that was going to allow me to still be the calm presence, while I was, you know, carrying my child. And so from that mindfulness came the meditation. I found out with meditation, I had been doing it from the very beginning, since I can remember, but we didn't call it meditation. What we called it was I would just leave my body, honestly. So during times that didn't feel good, I would just leave my body. And so for it was beautiful to be able to change the narrative of that, to bring calmness and balance and harmony, to be able to use that same skill. So it was never hard for me to meditate. And then being able to embody the other parts of my life that, I wasn't paying attention to. So mindfulness saved my life. It saved my baby girl's life, and it changed the way I taught. So I was an educator at the time too. Once an educator, always an educator. And so it started blending into the practices that I had with my children, embracing aromatherapy, and embracing. I would say this would be the early stages of like restorative, without even knowing about like what restorative practices were. So that's how it started. It actually started as an LLC, and using that meditation and aromatherapy just to get me through the days, through the minutes of the day. And once I really embraced it, I wanted to share it with other educators. So what I would do is I would have these professional development spaces, and they would come in, and I would talk about self care and mindfulness and aromatherapy. And shout out to my co-founders, Gino, Jonathan White, and King Shakur, because up until 2019, so that was about 2017. So up until 2019, it had been an LLC. And once I bumped into them, it became a nonprofit. So what we do is we have taken the five elements of hip hop and blended them with the five components of social emotional learning to create this immersive, like, social emotional arts program. And we use the restorative approaches and practices to ensure that we're creating a space for the children. What I did notice during 2019, I was an adjunct professor at the time, and when everything shut down, all I could hear, I could hear the children. It was a weird sensation. And whenever I would see children, they would just have earbuds in their ear, and I was like, "What are they listening to? Like, we got to get in their ears." It was like everybody was having all these forums about, like, what they thought. And I was like, but what do the children think? Like, I feel like their lives are being influenced the most. Like, we've got to create a forum, we've got to create a space for them. I want to know. So that's how we became a nonprofit, and that's the reason why. because we wanted to create a safe space for them to come and for them to have these conversations. But also, we paired it with the 12 stages of healing, which are breathing exercises. And so the first album that we used was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. It was called The Miseducation of Self was the program. We took seven songs from her album and blended them with the 12 stages of healing. And we just allowed them to chat and talk about like the lyrics and how it was that they were feeling, and it created a forum for them to really explain like where they were at, because we had babies that were like in their room like all day long in front of a screen, and they were shutting down and they weren't able to see their friends. If anybody got sick, they weren't able to be around their families, and people were losing their lives. And so it was important to us to build a forum. And so that was our start. So we started online, and it has it has basically progressed from there. So we're in schools and we're in community centers, but it has stayed the same. But what I have done what we've done as an organization is shifted our curriculum to embed the restorative approaches in there, because when we first started, it wasn't in there. And it was really important to create norms, because in the beginning, we didn't have any norms. And so it was really important to create norms for everybody to be seen and heard, and for us to take these indigenous ways of how it is that we resolve conflict and are able to be compassionate and receive each other and meet each other where we are, you know. So so the beginning of all of our curriculum, all of our programs, they always start with the opening restorative circles so that everybody's checking in. Our babies come in all the time with setting events and things that have happened, and nobody's checking in with them. And so, how does it feel to come into a space and you've got, something happen, like maybe you woke up late or you couldn't find, clean clothes or whatever it is that happened? You carry that energy with you all day long. And then what happens when the teacher comes in there with their setting events and there's nothing in the classroom really to settle that energy? You have what it is that we're experiencing in schools right now. So we wanted to make sure that we created a space to where whenever they came in, we honored whatever emotion they came in with. We honored whatever that feeling was that they're coming in there with. And so um, they check in, we build norms, we get into the activity, and we always close with reflections. And I love our reflection time because um, we don't normally ask the children how they feel about the program in real time, especially after it's just happened. And so it's our way of being able to get real time feedback and finding out, everywhere you go, there are different children and all these babies are different individuals. And so being able to give them a choice and say, hey, what is it that we didn't do that you do want to do? Or what is it that you didn't like? What can we incorporate? What do you want to see more of? Like, what was your favorite part? Like, did you learn something about yourself? And so being able to have these discussions and really building relationships with these children so that they understand that this is a safe space and they have something to look forward to when they get out of school, if we're after school or if we're during the day. Like it's a beautiful feeling, and it was something that as an educator we don't make time to really do. There's not a lot of restorative campuses out in Texas, and so being able to have this opportunity to bring those those experiences to the children is really an honor. It's really an honor because children, they're innocent, and they're very truthful, and they'll give it to you real and raw, and that's the way I love it.
Yeah, that's facts. What's the name of your nonprofit?
Oh, it's To Inspire Peace. I never said that.
To
It's the number
inspire
two,
peace.
Inspire Peace. Yeah, To Inspire Peace Inc.
Gotcha, man. I love everything that you said. Marcus. Well, I don't know how much Marcus talked to you about me, but I'm also a restorative practitioner myself, and you just made me think of something. How universal law as well as restorative practice is definitely connected, because the restorative practice is understand, like, it's restoring harm, right? Like understanding that the more I know about somebody, the less likely I am to harm that person. And then when you think about universal law, it's the understanding truly that we're all alike, we're all one, like we are all on the same same level and playing field. So it's just so dope because I never thought of it until you said that. So that's so dope. How did you stumble upon restorative practices? Because I know a lot of people, like you said, in Texas, there aren't a lot of restorative places to go. But I know now restorative practices are becoming a hot button topic because we're actually having a conference here in Chicago. It's actually in Oak Park, but coming in January. But I'm really interested in knowing, like, how did you get into that? Like, how did you get into restorative practices?
So, my restorative practices mentor, she's actually out of New York. And
Okay.
so she came to the school district that I was working at the time, and I was looking through the district newsletter that came out, and I just saw it, and it just caught my eye, and I was like, "Yo, I want to know more." And I showed up, and that was my initial training, and I've just really embraced the lifestyle ever since. It made my life better. It made me see it confirmed my own knowing. It was like,
Mm,
sometimes when you have a specific belief or a lifestyle and it's different from what you see around you or in society, it for me it made me question myself. And so for me, it was definitely a confirmation of my own knowing as how I needed to live and move forward and even have relationships with other people, and that the concept of community building was really a real thing that we
Yeah.
could create in any environment that we're in. And so shifting that energy in that way was really important to me and still is. And so I embraced it, and that's how I got my start.
That's so phenomenal. Because I just want to say, like, people don't understand the power in restorative practices because it's not just something we talk about. It's not just something. It's not. It's a way of life. Like, it's literally because when we hold circle, we establish values as well, and we always tell them, like, rarely do you go into a space and people ask you, how do you want to be treated? Like, what do you need to feel safe? Like, what do you need to feel like your true authentic self? And like you said, there's a million things going on with people, and you might have just said something that triggers them. Like, you're not even the true cause, but it's something that you said that triggered them. And I think that even outside of the programs that we do, people need to adopt these practices in their real lives because it will improve their lives. I truly believe that.
100%. And then you have these spaces that say that they're restorative, but they're only restorative when there's an issue. So it's like making sure that we're creating space 80% of the time and
Yeah.
only responding 20% of the time, and not just saying, hey, we're restorative because we're not coming up with punitive consequences. We're no longer suspending children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But where is the restoration in that? So even creating clarity, because sometimes we'll come into even social emotional learning, sometimes I pause with that, and I'd rather say social emotional arts because to me that's a verb, that's an activity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that they sometimes use restorative practices in the same way of saying, oh, we're restorative, but still, engaging in these practices that may not necessarily be restorative for the person that's on the receiving end.
Yeah.
I was very intentional about this connection, so I love to see the frequency, right? One thing that you mentioned in our original call was the chocolate factory. I think that was one thing that definitely stuck with me, and I was like, I need her to tell more people about the thought process behind it because it kind of blew my mind hearing it collectively. Would you care to just dabble with that a little bit for me?
Absolutely. So sometimes I end up watching movies and getting like a bigger, I'm sure everybody does this, but I guess that's a lot of how I gauge like my own process of like looking at things that are happening. And so I was watching Charlie and what is it, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, because they got two. It's Charlie and Chocolate Factory. It's not Charlie and Chocolate. It's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I watched the whole movie. And when I got to the end, I was like, so what would have happened? Like, how would this story have been different had Willy Wonka put in place like restorative practices and created like restorative tools to make sure that all of the children were able to get the chocolate at the end? Like, I really looked at the way that Willy Wonka was kind of reacting to the children, and it was kind of like some of it was very dismissive, Some of it was a little judgmental, and even looking at like, the parents and how they fostered some of the behavior. Like, what if we were able to shift that and change that? And so that night, I ended up writing a curriculum, which was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is called the Chocolate Factories under hip hop and healing. So taking the five elements or whatever. So there's a graffiti art, activity that we've created, and one for DJ and one for knowledge. And then knowledge has like seven different points underneath it or whatever that they can deep dive, and that's like the end of the curriculum or whatever. And then what are the other two? MC and I think I said all of them. But having all of those different elements to be able to kind of come to the end whenever you get to the knowledge piece, after we've done all of these activities, when we get to the knowledge piece, like, how is it that we all can win and we can all get the chocolate? Like, how do we make those situations happen? And what happens whenever we engage in activities in that way that are really intentional, that show the true value of community building? Because I heard you guys talking about the mastermind group. So it's almost like building that, but with the children at a younger level using like the hip hop activities, where they're able to freely express. And then being able at the end to have that reflective time with the knowledge piece and deep dive into like what it is that they actually got from the activities, and and having to group up and receive one another for their strengths and their weaknesses, but being able to even break down like the characteristics of like what each of them, like we were just talking about Thanksgiving, and when we think of Augustus Gloop or whatever, like the gluttony piece, and then being able to talk about like what was it about his mother that enabled that behavior. So just really deep diving into like character analysis, along with the social emotional components or whatever, but creating that art expression for them to really go deeper, and then putting them in groups so that they can experience it like on a level that creates compassion practices.
Mm.
Creating something
Yeah.
around Willie and the whatever. I didn't watch it, but I'm familiar with it, right? That's dope. When you first told me, I was just like, wow, I would have never ever thought to do something like that. But James and I often talk about like how we get sparked by looking at something that we don't think is connected to what we're currently thinking about at the moment, right? Being able to just take yourself outside of your specific vision or focus at that moment and getting inspired by something that just happens in everyday life or something that we were just exposed to and being able to connect the dots. I thought that was phenomenal. And being able to break it down in a way that is simplistic and layman terms, but easily digestible, but relevant to the youth, that is one of the biggest pieces. Even when you hear our intro component, we talk about one being able to educate them, but doing it in a relevant form and fashion that's engaging. That's what a lot of the school systems are missing out on. And it sounds like each one of us are really like checking off the box in that component, right? So again, just want to give you your flowers for doing it, in a manner which is untraditional to a lot of people. But it was you the whole time. I heard you talk a little bit earlier about how being mindful and how the restorative justice taught you like that it was okay for you to be you and comfortable in your own skin when all the other systems in play tell you, hey, you should do it in this form or fashion, but that feels unnatural to a lot of individuals. And I can relate, and I know a lot of my youth can relate in always being told that we're different or we are always in some form of deviation from the general crowd. But whenever you're able to grow into that, you're able to outgrow that shell that was society created for you, is when things really start to begin to align for you. And I'm kind of hearing that with your journey as well. And that's why I was so excited to connect with you in more depth.
I really appreciate that. And, and I must mention this, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I didn't see any people in general of color. And so for me, it was really important to be able to take that and still do hip hop and healing curriculum with that, to really bring out the fact that hip hop and healing is bigger than, because hip hop is a lifestyle in and of itself. Being committed to healing is a lifestyle in and of itself. And so whenever you put those things together, it is definitely culturally relevant. And so what it is that we do, my driving point is this, whatever we do for us we should be able to do for everyone.
1000%. And I think that's the restorative part of it, right? Just making sure that everybody has equity in the space or in this thing that we're doing. So I think that's phenomenal. But Marcus kind of talked about this when you said you started tapping into the mindfulness and then even some of the social emotional aspects of being self aware. Like, when did you realize the like importance of just being authentically yourself? Like, forget what everybody else is doing, forget what everybody else is talking about. Like, I don't care what this person thinks, if even if my belief goes against yours. Like, when did you come to the point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna just be me, like forget what everybody else is doing?
It's actually been very recent. I can't say that I've done it for years. It's actually
Okay.
been very recent. It's been a progression because when you go through a lifestyle of people pleasing, because I'm good at people pleasing, and
Mm-hmm.
that is something that I had embraced in order to survive, for
Yeah.
survival.
Yeah.
It's a trauma response. So living a life where I don't have to please people, I don't have to use my intuition in that way, very liberating. But I would say I still think it's a work in progress,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I think that making the decision to do To Inspire a Piece instead of being in a traditional school teaching was the, it was a turning point for me
Mm-hmm.
in being able to be authentically myself because I had been speaking about mindfulness for a long time. And so taking that step made it real, like it made it serious. Because a lot of people were like, "What are you doing?" Even questioning like whether I believed in God, because of a lot of my practices. And so um, I would say it's a progression, and I still think that I'm growing in it,
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
So
Yeah, because in the nonprofit world, like sometimes you feel like you need to be in this box in order to receive funding, if I'm being real.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Talk
um,
about it.
so it's like,
Yeah.
being able to be authentic and not compromise myself, because there's different ways that we can compromise ourselves and pimp ourselves out in order to attain our dream. And so just making a conscious decision, that I won't be bought or swayed. I'm not going to mission drift on account of a dollar or what some may feel like success looks like.
Yeah.
Hmm. She said, "I'm not gonna mission drift." Dude, I like that. I like that. That's good. And hearing kind of how you was ostracized, your thoughts weren't even like that drastic or extreme, right? It's just something that some people may have not been exposed to. So to hear that and know that you just continue to endure, like again, even more reason to give you your flowers. Now, you talked about walking away for your 9 to 5 to really align with that passion a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit about that because again, James has his own unique story when it comes to that. I've had a unique story in working backwards to align my 9 to 5 with my passion, right? And that was how we were able to connect through After School HQ with working with nonprofits, being able to provide them additional resources. I was able to kind of align my passion with my 9 to 5, with my 5 to 10 as well, simultaneously, right? How did you go about pivoting away from what you thought was your traditional why, which is pouring into youth, to uncovering yourself a little bit more and now realizing the mindfulness component, which is outside of the school system, is really where you need to be? That must have been a good question.
It was a really good question.
Yes, I'm trying to make sure that I fully like
Yeah, yeah.
it uncovered a lot of universal laws that I was not honoring. Let me just say that.
Mm,
And so that I am now 43 and my year of 42 was a doozy. So 42, 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 personal year is about really diving into relationship building. And so I felt like when I was listening to the podcast, we probably have similar stories. So I went to 15 different schools from K to 12th grade, and I was the only child until I was about 9 years old. And so I'm good at being by myself and being in solitude. And because there hasn't been a lot of stability in who's in my life, especially whenever it comes to friendships and relationships, I got really, really comfortable with, people coming and people going, to where it wasn't a priority to really build a long-standing relationship because in my head, people leave.
Mm,
And so year 42 showed me that even if I still want to hang on to that philosophy, it is important to still honor people and build relationships and not look at them as though that they're going to leave. And so year 43 is 7, and it's a deeper, deeper inner work. So in this deeper inner work, right now, um, I heard you guys say it's about the pivot. And so right now, it's me pivoting in a way that I didn't anticipate. And what that means is showing up. That's why I say that authenticity is a growing process for me right now, because I am having to claim my freedom and sovereignty from truly embracing who I am and showcasing my actual talents and gifts and skills in a way that's not kind of like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, like I'm so used to, but is really embracing myself being out front and being seen and being heard, which is what I encourage everyone else. And I work with artists, across the city, but am I doing this myself? Am I practicing what I'm preaching? And so that is my journey right now, honestly. Like, I know that it's going to work out. And it's also taught me another level of gratitude of the excessive practices that I was engaging in. And had I not had this moment of having to like pivot in the level up, because we don't talk about the fact that when you level up, you end up being in preschool again. Like you don't level up and you're like at the top. No, you
mhm,
level up and you're like pre-K and you're like, oh, so then embracing the fact that like, yo, I feel super ignorant. There's so much that I didn't know, and being able to humble myself and then just being able to sit with it, embrace it, and vibe high anyways, and still be in a space of gratitude because what in my meditations, what I was given was that because I was like, yo, did I do something wrong? And they, what I received is no, no, no. But every choice, even in your ignorance, every choice, even in your unhealed spaces, they still have consequences. So, what I'm living in gratitude of is the lessons and blessings and even the consequences of my people pleasing and my willingness to live in a space of ignorance.
that's so good. That's so good. Cause in my practice of really just personal development, like one of my mentors, he talks about just being a perpetual learner, like always being a lifelong learner, being able to adjust, being able to pivot, as you said, and as we talk about, it's just being okay figuring out like, all right, like I see that I'm on this new level. What do I need to do now to get to the next level? Because like you said, like once you do level up, it's new. It's a new level to get to. It's a new you that you have to become. Because I think that at the end of the day, a lot of us don't realize that it's not like we're chasing a thing. Like we're just trying to become the best versions of ourselves, and the best version changes over time, and that could be scary. And isn't it interesting that you can know exactly what to do and still not do it? Like you can tell, like I think a lot. Like I don't know about you guys, but for me, like it's funny because Marcus and I we talk a lot, and I'm like I have this imposter syndrome a little bit because it's like I'll tell the youth like, man, you need to do this, you need to practice this, you need to write out your gratitudes, you need to, visualize what you want, you need to do all of this. And I'm like, dang, like I skipped my gratitude this morning. Like, and I'm telling him, and I'll be honest with the kid though. I'm like, I'm gonna be real. Like, I don't do it every day
Mm.
like I should, but at the same time, like, I feel like a lot of times, like we do that as people, like as mentors sometimes too. Like we'll tell them, but I just think that it's so dope to be aware of that, because when you become aware, you then can make the adjustment again to pivot and to improve. So shout out to us for being aware of that.
No doubt, no doubt. And I'm in gratitude for having the tools and practices because with the type of like background that I have, going through this in any other part of like who I am,
Hmm.
um, I could see myself committing suicide or making really sad choices. And
Mm.
so being able to embody like, the practices, like even whenever I got up this morning, like I did my yoga nidra, and even after I finished that, I was like, mm-mm. I had to do some breath work, and even after that, I was like, mm-mm. And then I was like, where's my aromatherapy? And so sometimes it does take multiple practices. Maybe sometimes it's not like even the same routine. And that's what I'm learning is that like I want to know my body and all my energetic bodies and be so in tune that I'm able to create harmony in my environment because it really comes within. And so, like, I heard you guys talking about, the fact that, like, whatever it is that's within is like what you attract whenever, you step outside the door. And so, that is the reality that I want to embrace. So, what is it that I need to do before I walk out the door, before I have interactions with anyone, whether it's on the phone or, outside? To be able to harmonize myself so that I'm not projecting, but that I'm actually able to embrace what it is that I want to speak into my existence.
The biggest question I always think about before I rest my head is, what was your influence today? Right. If it was me being mad at Avery today because she didn't finish her homework in a timely fashion, it was me opening the door for the elderly woman today. Like, what was your biggest influence? And what can you do to make sure your energy is more productive going forward? So, even in our interaction following that, I left off the phone just cheesing, like, hey, I think this was an extremely positive interaction. It was good, high level energy. I was able to pass on the routine to you, you know what I'm saying? Cough, cough. So I think that's always worthwhile. But anytime you meet anybody who just in alignment with your energy, I think we need to be more intentional with just spending a little bit more time with them, right? Letting them know that they're not alone. I think is the biggest thing, because oftentimes when people are think on a certain frequency, they either have to talk down to people and not to be disrespectful, but so that they understand and grasp it. You can't talk high frequency with each and every individual, and oftentimes you feel alienated because of that. And I think that was kind of the initial conversation we had that really kicked everything off, to say, hey, I think we need to have a little bit more of a deeper dive. So I commend you for, opening up and being willing to take on new partnerships, new collaborations, new friendships. And I was very similar in extent to, like, I feel I don't need no new friends. I don't like people. Like, people are not genuine. People are not real. So,
Yeah.
but if I would be so closed off, I would never have opportunities to make connections like this. And again, people who don't know, like, me and James have never met each other, but that's my brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a world of opportunity. We have never met each other in person. Let me clarify, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so vital that we open up. And when we find like minded frequencies, we put our pride egos aside, we give flowers when they're due, and we make that next connection to see why our energies even cross paths. So, again, to your point, I think it's phenomenal. I love the personal growth, I love the development. And again, that's why I say, yo, we gotta have you on. We gotta celebrate you.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate having these conversations with both of you and the ability to be able to connect into, because it can get isolating sometimes. It really
Yeah.
can. And so this is gold. This is priceless. This time, the present moment is incredible. So thank you for sharing space with me, like for real.
Yeah, we appreciate you. But as we kind of close out, let our listeners know where they can find you. I kind of like scoured the internet to find your social media and stuff, so I put it there. But we like to hear from you, like what you got going on, and what can our listeners tap into you at?
Well, man, I have a few things going on. And embracing my own authentic self. Uh, to Inspire Peace, what used to be To Inspire Peace is now called Favor Flow Restorative. And Favor Flow Restorative, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook, and we also have a YouTube.
Okay,
And the YouTube actually has meditations on it.
that's dope.
It's a whole vibe. So if you're having a bad day, go on Favor Flow Restorative on YouTube and get yourself out of that vibration and be able to vibe higher. For the organization, it's at the number two Inspire Peace on Instagram, on Facebook. We also have a TikTok, and we also have a YouTube. And on the YouTube, there's different playlists talking about mental health and hip hop. We got a hip hop and healing playlist, and so it's a lot of beautiful goodies on that. And then our website is www.toinspirepeace.org.
Hey, as you can see, she working. The
Yeah,
squad
yeah.
got a lot of good things coming out, man. But as you see, this is a phenomenal individual working hard, really working to be a template for the youth and be a resource for the future and all she connects with. So please make sure y'all tap in. And you see, she already on the frequency, right? So as always, man, we are Let's Grow Together. We appreciate y'all sincerely, and we look forward to tapping in with y'all next week. Peace, family.
Yeah, and as always, man, like, share, comment, subscribe. You can follow me everywhere at jturner0121. Follow the foundation at a Greater Good Foundation. Please follow my buddy Marcus over there at mastermind_Marcus on IG, and follow Roots Mentoring, man. We appreciate y'all. Let's grow together, family. Until next time.